morning. Peace and blessings, everybody. This is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. I just wanted to come on for a little while just to give space to different areas of my life. So you've seen some of my posts. I'm going to be going live more often, doing videos, giving out word, because I've come to the realization that now is the time to continue, but with boldness. We talked about that just a few moments ago in the Bible study that I attended. Thank you, Sheena, for inviting me. But there has been things I've been working on, and now it's time to bring them forth. So one thing that is near and dear to my heart is people who may be suffering in grief or loss or heartache, and they don't know how to live. And the reason why I say that is because as I've worked on some of these other projects, this topic comes up a lot. And I want to shed some light on some of the things that I do. So in the mornings, usually in the mornings, sometimes I may do evening walks, but I take time out to go outside and walk. If I can't get outside, like it's supposed to rain tomorrow, I'll do indoor workouts and I'll walk. And so my process is I read a scripture, usually before I get out of bed. Thank God for waking me up. And then I get up, I get dressed, and I go outside. That was my normal routine. But now that I've been walking and running with other individuals, I usually shower first. But before that, I just usually put on some gear, go ahead and work out. But out of consideration for other people, I shower first. So the whole meaning behind that is that in 2021, when I lost my brother, I came to Albany expecting to enjoy this, our new home, new experience, even though I'm from Georgia, Albany, Georgia. But we had moved away and then we came back. And so I was hoping to just have a great time. We were going to come back and help out with my brother. And shortly after we moved in August, and then in November, the day before Thanksgiving, he transitioned. And so that was very, very hard to deal with, because I had all these expectations that when I moved here, we would just have a good time. We would, because when we first came, we partied every day. My family, some of them spent a night over. We just had a good time. And so dealing with the death of my brother, it shook the foundation, my very foundation of faith within God to a point, and within myself. Some of you know that I am a nurse by trade, and one thing that I knew was that I could heal him in a capacity through God and through food and nutrition, supplements, whatever it was going to take to get him back on the right path. That's what I was willing to do. But with that, I didn't understand how some things are in our control and some things are not in our control. And it basically also depends on the decision of the person that you're caring for. So it was very hard to accept that as a nurse, I still lost my brother. As a nurse, he still passed away. That was very heavy. So I went into a deep depression, and I'm going to go over the steps of grief, because a lot of people don't like to call it grief. Some people call it a spirit of heaviness. Some people, just like to call it mourning, but they have actually given it different titles and labels. So we'll go over that. But I wasn't able to process that. So with that, I just had to, hey, Uncle Milton. So with that, I had to take time out to ask God to help me. So the scripture that came to mind when I was going through was, take up thy bed and walk. So I had been in the bed for like 3 months, like back to back. I would get up in the morning, I would go take long baths, and I would just stay in the bathroom crying the whole time because I couldn't understand how my brother would be, he was here, then he's gone. That wasn't the plan. And so I cried for days and days and days, and then days turned into weeks. And then people were still coming over to the house to support us and be kind. And it was like, I was grateful that they were here, but I wasn't able to accept all of what was going on with people. So with that, I've never been a heavy drinker. I never was just like, drinking and drunk and all of that. But I would, do mixed drinks or something on occasions. But when it came to the time my brother passed away, I was like trying to find something to drink. Whatever they would bring or whatever we could get, I would just drink that to help me deal with it. And I learned that it wasn't really helping me, it was hurting me. And so the drinking was just adding to the problem. I would take time to drink straight liquor. Like, it was just that bad. And so it was so heartbreaking that nobody around me really was functioning. So it was like I was grieving, my family was grieving, and we couldn't help each other because we all were grieving. Like, it was just a pool of sadness, heartache, and grief. So one day I was talking to God, and I was like, I need you to take care of me because I can't take care of myself. And I felt his presence. And what I gathered from that is, I got you. I'll hold on to you. I'll keep you while you're going through. And so I literally felt like the presence of God sit at the feet of the bed day after day after I was just crying and crying and crying. And one day, I just heard within myself, it's time to get up and walk. And so I got up and I started doing a little walking. But that really didn't come until after my own personal tragedy happened. I was not feeling well, and I kept feeling just bad, like stomach hurting, dizziness, all kinds of things. I would get up out of the bed and spiral back down. I just felt horrible. And so what I realized is that it was time for me to go to the doctor and see what's going on. I had a job at the time, but it was just like I couldn't function because I was so out of it. So I went to the doctor, and the doctor, he did all my labs. He came back and he was like, yeah, your blood pressure is high, your blood sugar is high, your cholesterol is high. All these are out of range. And then for my stomach, he ordered some tests, and I did the test. And I realized that after I finally got the results back, that I had a small ulcer in my stomach. And so I said, you know what? Even before I found out the ulcer, when all those numbers were out of range, I just went on and went to the doctor. Well, when I was in the doctor, he asked, how did I want to treat those things? And he said, diet and exercise or medication? And I said, diet and exercise. And so I began to go ahead and start. That day I left the doctor, I was so mad and hurt within myself. I started walking. And all of that came as in that day when I did hear that voice, is like, get up, get up. And so I got up and I was able to go to the doctor. And then from the doctor, I started walking. So now when you see my videos and I'm always out here and I'm asking, hey, do you have anything positive to say to the people? Or I say, this is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. It's because I'm commanding myself to be reminded that God got me out of bed today. He woke me up. He helped me to start the healing process. And so with that, I met a lot of different people. I was just looking for people to talk to. Some people gave me different people who had been trained in it. And I was introduced to a training by Marika Floyd. She's a grief coach. She's a life coach. She's a great person. You can look her up. She's local. And if you want to, get someone who you can talk to, she's very helpful. But she introduced me to a training, and the training was David Kessler's training, and it was grief coaching, a grief educator. And she is a grief educator. So I took the training and I learned a lot of things, and it helped me to understand where I was. Because when people talk to you about grief and loss, somewhat you have a deaf ear because you're so out of it. Like, you can be hurting so bad where you don't hear what people are saying to you. So what I learned was there are different types of grief. I'm sharing with this notebook that I got from the training. There's delayed grief, and that's grief that we don't feel in the moment because it's not safe or we're in survival mode. That happened to me because I was definitely out there, like, trying to, at first, when it first happened, trying to do everything, plan everything, host everything. And then after all that happened, I just crashed. Disenfranchised grief, that is any grief we judge or minimize. And sometimes people say, oh, I don't know why they still grieving, or, what's going on with them? They should get over it by now. Grief has no timeline, so we have to make sure we take time to give people space so they can grieve on their own terms, but still stay a safe, healthy distance to let them know, hey, I'm here. I'm grateful for my family, especially my husband. Oh, hi, Denisha, thanks for joining. He was able to allow me to grieve. He really couldn't say anything to help me, but he was present, and he was making sure that I would, be okay. He tried. He was grieving himself. So it was just the support of just knowing that I'm not completely alone. I was grateful for that. Ambiguous grief is grief that's hard to see. Inconclusive, there is nobody to grieve. There is hope. It breeds conspiracy theories. You really can't place it where it's coming from. Complicated, when painful emotions or loss don't improve with time and are so severe that you have trouble resuming or creating your life. One thing I learned with complicated grief, it was not only did I lose my brother, but then I started losing other loved ones behind that. I lost close cousins. One of my cousins was murdered. I lost aunts. It was just back to back to back. So that led into, just deeper and deeper sadness. And so there's collective and public grief. When we grieve as a group, an event or a public figure. Sometimes, like when the celebrities pass away, people will get together and celebrate their life. And some of them may, hurt or cry or, take it on. But like when we've seen some celebrities, they have people on the news and all of them are crying at the same time or just hurt at the same time. Traumatic, that combines trauma with bereavement or grief responses. Masked grief, that is presenting in another way, and the resulting feeling is actually a response to grief. I tried that. That was what I was doing when I was lashing out or angry with other people, trying to push the grief off from myself. Anticipatory grief, that's grief that comes before death. We experienced that too because we experienced that when we had gotten like the diagnosis, but I still was like, no, he's still going to be healed. He's going to be set free. He's going to be delivered. Cumulative grief, when someone experiences multiple losses during a short period, or unintended grief that builds up. So when I was talking about all the loved ones that passed away, that was part of it too. And some of these can mix in together, but all of those people back to back to back. I remember one of my cousins, she came over when my brother passed away, and she was so supportive. And then she called me like the next day, and she was like, she was diagnosed with cancer. And then shortly after that, she passed away. So it was like, the wound just seemed like it would not heal. So it was on and on and on. Secondary loss, the other losses that accompany grief in addition to the primary emotional loss. When I was already sad about my brother, I wasn't able to really function. I was in pain. And then even with going to work, it was just hard because I took care of other people, and it was just, I couldn't take care of other people feeling defeated, like I couldn't take care of my brother. So what I did, I stopped working at that job, and then I learned that it had its own grief, because it's like you have been doing this for so long, and then now you're not doing it, so you're trying to understand what's going on. But grief is what's going on inside of us, while mourning is what we do outside. And this is coming directly from our class. And it says, the internal work of grief is a process, a journey. It does not have prescribed dimensions, and it does not end on a certain date. When people are mourning, you can't judge their grief based on who is crying the most. Sometimes people never cry, and their heart is still broken. There are different stages of grief that they have captured. Psychologists have captured denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, meaning. When you grieve, sometimes you can experience all these throughout one day, and sometimes it'll come and it'll linger, and you will have the grief. Let's say if you're in denial. I was in denial at first before he passed away. I was like, oh no, we could do this and this will work. And after he passed away, I was like, I remember talking to, when we went to go view him, and I was like, we were still at the hospital, and I was like, hey, if you're going to get up, you better get up, because the funeral home people coming. And my brother had a great sense of humor, so, we always kind of talked and joke. But it was still like, I couldn't believe that this man is gone. So the anger part, I was angry because I was like, people don't understand. People, they come and they're really trying to help you. They're trying to be that nice voice or that calmness or peace that you want. But if you're not in a space to receive that, they're just there. During the time, I couldn't remember most of the people that actually came by the house. Like, I saw pictures later, or even the service. Like, we watched that later to see like what really happened. So it just depends on where you are in the situation. Sometimes it can be short term, it can be long term. There are just different phases that you go through in life. But the biggest part is to know that when you feel like something is just off, you have the right to feel that. And you also have the right to ask for help. So if you know someone who you possibly could talk to, or ask them for a recommendation of who you could talk to, that's priceless, because getting it off your chest, talking to somebody with a sound voice is so refreshing, because you're not alone. And that's one thing that the enemy comes to do, is to isolate us and make us think that we're alone. But we're not alone. So God is omnipresent. He's always with us. So take that time to realize that we can make it through this. I love to hear people say, this too shall pass, because I was in a space at one moment where I didn't think anything would pass. I thought I was going to be in this hole forever. I was so sad, so hurt. And that's all I could see over and over and over, day after day. But I just am grateful that he gave me the opportunity to get up and start walking. Not feeling sorry for myself, learning that other people have lost loved ones, and they have experienced, casualties that they may compare and say is more severe. But in grief, you really don't compare, because whatever hurt you may not hurt me in the same way. And the good thing that I did learn throughout this course was that if you love someone deeply, you have the right to miss that person. You have the right to have those moments of sadness and hurt. But as a human being, and everything around us is moving, and is moving towards death, we can't stay there. And that was hard for me to accept. I was like, I don't know anything else. I'm just going to stay right here. But I learned that death is a part of life. And so when we lose or someone transitions, however you want to describe it, we take that time and we keep working through it every day. There are some days, that was 2021, so it's 2025 now, but there are some days where it still feels fresh and it can just take me back. And then I just talk to God and I keep giving it to him, because through it all, he was the only one that could bring me out. Another scripture makes me think about, do you want to be made whole? And all this is coming from John. And it's, you can look through chapter 5. You'll find the stories there. But do I want to be made whole? Sometimes we can get stuck in our own familiar space, and it's comfortable. And so we have to ask God to help us get out of the land of the familiar and take us into something new. That was too long when I look back over it to mourn, because the mourning process was like every day the same thing. I wake up in the morning and the noonday, drinking off and on, all that type of stuff. And it was just for those 3 months, it was just a lot. But now I've learned that when things do happen like that, I can journal, I can talk to people, I can pray, and I can ask and rely on God for his strength to bring me out, because otherwise I couldn't make it. So there are different ways people mourn. Some people, they actually acknowledge that the person has passed away and they move on. I met people like that during this training, because they were there and they were there to help somebody else, and they would share their clients' stories. And just listening to them, I was like, wow, so everybody's not stuck, but some people are stuck. So for the ones that are stuck, reach out. You can reach out to myself. Like I said, I am trained. I have worked through the process enough where it's not so fresh to me. There are different phases in grief, and sometimes it could be too soon to do what you really think you should. Like I could have started this a year ago, but I was still in the phase of learning, like, where am I? How do I feel? Can I talk to somebody without crying? Can I share my story? And the different phases, like I mentioned before about the types of grief, well, there's different phases too that might help you gauge where you are. Anticipatory grief is before the death. Acute grief is when it just happened, and I was too hurt to try to help anybody else. But then early grief, that's the first 2 years. And mature grief is the rest of their lives. If you love somebody in your life, love is so great that you'll always have a little piece of you that you miss of that person. And some things can remind you of that person. When you smell a different fragrance, it can remind you of a loved one. When you hear a funny joke, it can remind you of someone. When you see their children, my husband always talks about my niece and nephew, like their father passed away, but they look just like them. They talk like them. They joke like them. So it's good. At first, it used to be so hard to look at them. And now it's like, I love embracing them every time, because it's like, he's physically gone, but he left fruits And so it's just fun to be around them and talk to them and have conversations. So I said something about mature grief the rest of your lives. The way we embrace things that happen to us will help us navigate life, either in a fruitful way or in a harmful way. So we have that choice to say, where are we with this? Where do I stand in this? And I had to be honest with myself about my feelings. And I had to say it was okay for me to feel the feelings that I had. It was okay for me to be angry. It was okay for me to feel misunderstood. It was okay for me to feel like I didn't have anybody. Even though I had people all around. Like our house was full of people. Our house was full of people like a month after. You know how people say, well, you know, after the funeral, nobody's going to come. Well, my brother friends came every day for at least 2 months. Like every day. And so that was their way of being supportive and showing love. But for us, I know for me, it was hard because I had to put on a face to be like, hey, y'all, come on in. Y'all welcome here, because I always wanted people to feel welcome in my house. And that was draining in itself because I didn't have that time to just steal away. Only when I went in the bathtub, I had that freedom. I felt like I had that freedom to just cry and release. But so many people being around, and they were just trying to make it, you know, the best way. And shout out to my brother's friends, because you all did an exceptional job with holding us down and trying to help. And I'm grateful for that. And by him being, my brother was so young, I think it was a lot on his friends too. And even now when I see some of them, they, you know, they be happy to see us, or they might drop their head a little bit, but we still be in good spirits, because at first, when we used to see people, it'd be like, we was like, start crying. Time you see them, pull up in the driveway, because it was just so fresh and it was hurtful. But I just wanted to come on tonight to let you know you're not alone. You can talk to people. You can have conversations. You can write down notes. You can talk and pray to God. Whatever it takes for you to get into a space where you have peace. I didn't have peace when he passed away. I had all kinds of questions and emotions. But you can have peace. You can have joy again. I didn't think we would ever laugh again after my brother. I thought we would never have a good time. We didn't want to have a party again because he would always be at the party. We would have a good time. So I thought, we're not going to party anymore. Matter of fact, we're going to shut everything down. And it was like, that wasn't living. And I had to learn to live again after that. So when you see me walking, I'm walking for my health, my physical health, my mental health, my social well-being, because vitamin D, when you get out in that sunlight, it changes your mood. It will help bring you back to life. And I just thank God. I give him all the glory, the honor, and the praise for getting me out of the bed. Because I was basically, I would say, having the symptoms of being dead myself, like dying, because it was like there was no reason to continue. So from time to time, I'll come on here. We're getting a community for this as well. There's so many things that God is birthing in this season, and I just want to be obedient to it. So, hi, how you doing, Patricia? I love to see that. Hi, Mom. There's so many things that God is birthing and doing in this season that I just want to be obedient to it. And so you'll see me on here. The grief support tonight is Monday. This is August, so it's a new month, new season. We are pushing out what God has given us. So on Monday nights, I'll come on and we'll have some conversation. I do want to give space to anyone who wants to say anything or have any questions about what we discussed tonight. You can put them in the comments, or you can inbox me, and I'll point you in the best direction that I can. And we'll continue to just go through. So now that when you see me walking, from time to time I might reference this beginning here because I have a whole coaching content on taking up your bed and walking. It's a journey through grief-based healing. It's my own story, and I'm going to just continue to share and encourage other people. I just want to let you know that you can make it. If I'm able to smile again and laugh and be around people and do different things, there's hope too. So be encouraged, be blessed, read your word, and ask God to help you. All right. We'll give it 10:35. We'll be done. Anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns that we want to address? Let's give you a couple minutes. And for the ones that's just joining us, this is just an introduction to what I will be doing when it comes to addressing grief and loss. Tonight I was discussing my own grief that I had experienced, or a spirit of heaviness, loss of a loved one. But there's just so many different spaces of, when I say spaces, just thinking of the holes that are in your heart that you can maneuver to live a life that's pleasing to God, even with your pain, your disappointment, your sadness, your anger, your guilt. You can give all of that to God and He'll use it for His glory. So some of us didn't talk about COVID. A lot of people, I've heard some people mention it recently about how they're dealing with the loss of loved ones after that. And we will give room for people to talk about that, because sometimes people just want to get it out and they suffer in silence because they didn't have anybody to talk to, or they think they will be judged. But this is a space where what we're creating is a space for you to be able to talk and share about what you feel and how can you get better. That's the goal for me. We're always going to get better and better and better until we transition. So that's it. All right. Well, no questions. You all be blessed, be encouraged, and I'll see you next Monday, Lord's willing. Have a good night. Bye. Love you.